Okay, recording. And if you raise your hand for questions or hit in the chat, we can get started. Guess we'll go Dan Savage, OrlandoMagic.com.
Morning, Jeff.
Morning.
As you guys prepare for the draft in just a few days, just how valuable is the support staff that you have, from Matt Lloyd to Pete D'Alessandro to all the scouts and all the work that they put in to get you here to this process?
I always want to name names, and I never do because I know I'll forget people, because there are so many valuable people in that room. And you know, I've spoken to a lot of teams around the league, and you know, a lot of people are kind of lightening the staff through COVID, you know, but everybody is so instrumental to our group that we've actually been doing daily testing and coming in for the week of the draft. And I just can't tell you how impossible this whole process would be without those guys. And you know, Matt is so on point. He's so knowledgeable. And all the rest of our crew has just done, you know, yeoman's work. And you guys know what an amazingly compressed schedule this is right now. So yeah, I mean, Dan, it would be an impossible feat without all of those guys. And I'm afraid to name names, but they've done an amazing job.
Right. Philip Rossman Reich, Orlando Magic Daily.
Hey, Jeff. I know Matt has spoken about this before in previous media availabilities. I know you might have too, but with how long you've been able to kind of sit with this draft class, you know, the draft happening 5 months later than it was supposed to, or 6 months later than it was supposed to. How did you guard against sort of paralysis by analysis, or how did you go about kind of managing, looking at this draft class for this long, and not kind of buying into it too much, or not hating it too much, or how did you go about the extra time?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, I was saying to someone, I feel like the draft has already happened. You know, we've been studying it for so long. But I don't know about paralysis part, but the analysis part, we try to be thorough every year. And obviously this year has provided the opportunity to even dig deeper into video work. And throughout the whole shutdown of the league, we were meeting 3 times a week. We had different breakdowns of video assignments and putting the draft into different buckets, and not just the draft, but free agency as well. So it's actually been very productively used, our time. And again, our guys have done an amazing job focusing in. And you know, Philip, I wouldn't say that we have to guard against paralysis by analysis, because the funny part of it is, as deadlines approach, it's all the same. You know, you can give a team 2 years or 2 months or 2 weeks. When you get within that window of a few days of the draft, the crunch time starts to come. And I do feel that we've done a good job tightening up our rankings, and we're in a good place to kind of react to what might come at us in the next few days.
Josh Robbins, The Athletic.
Jeff, it's been reported that the Magic are attempting to move up into the mid-lottery or higher. How much, to what degree do the Magic want to try to work a trade to move up to the mid-lottery or higher?
Josh, we've had discussions to move up. We've had discussions to move down. And as I always say, the greatest likelihood is that we pick where we are. You know, it's our job to talk to teams, and it's our job to explore all options and to explore all avenues. And obviously I won't comment on kind of what we're looking to do, but I will say that there's an awful lot of stuff that's been reported or rumored that has no basis in reality. And I won't say which does and which doesn't, but that's always the case, obviously, this time of year.
Mike Bianchi, Orlando Sentinel.
Yeah, Jeff, can you just talk about, you know, obviously the draft can always be somewhat of a crapshoot, but just this year's draft with all the COVID, the scouting issues, all of that, the college basketball season being shortened, how much more of a guessing game is this year's draft?
Well, that phrase scares me.
For lack of a better phrase.
No, but it's a good phrase. I mean, honestly, the draft probably is always a bit of a guessing game. I mean, at the end of the day, you're projecting. I don't care if it's Shaq. I remember people talking about Tim Duncan isn't going to be this and that. Look, until you see a guy do it, it's a guess. So it's always going to have that element to it. But you're 100% right, Mike. I mean, without the chance to have workouts, and the thing about those workouts is, it's the first time that you get to kind of control the environment. You get to kind of put guys into whatever sort of competitive situation that you deem valuable, and match them up against certain players and put them in certain positions and find out kind of like how they react. And that's gone. So I can tell you that we have, in my mind, gone above and beyond. We've I would guess that we've interviewed over 100 kids. We've done Zooms with everyone. We've gotten to know people as well as we possibly can. But without that extra layer of the in-person visits, the in-person workouts, there's certainly more element for risk. And even the Chicago process, where you're seeing guys play and you're getting all the medicals and you're interviewing an extra 15 kids that you may not otherwise get, it's definitely missing a layer. The good news is we're all on equal footing. So, we're all trying to kind of figure out the best way to go about it. And I think, again, getting back to the first question, our group has really done a good job. We've got kind of a master list of all the information that we've been gathering on everyone, that we can just kind of like, everyone is one click away, with the interviews that we've done and video features and scouting reports and everything. So we, we're trying to stay attached and trying to do our work through this kind of different sort of process.
Adam Shadow, Fox 35.
Hey, Jeff, I wonder if you could, I guess, boil it down to one or two top priorities that you have in the draft and what that would be. I know that's a difficult question, but.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Adam, I know this is something that we always talk about, and it's the right question. The problem is there's no right answer, and you have to just take what the draft gives you. And I think part of the trick of the draft is to figure out what the draft is giving you. And unless you're, a team that's, in the finals and you feel that you can't acquire a sort of player that you need, and this player fits and he could actually move you towards, getting over that hump. I think you just have to look at, the available talent and the character. And you guys know the sorts of players that we look to bring in here, and high character guys who are tough and smart, and we'll continue to do that. And I wish we had the luxury of just saying we need this, so let's go pick this guy. But if the draft were that easy, we wouldn't spend these late nights and kind of stressful times figuring out the 1,000 different if this then that scenarios that we have to go through.
Aaron Goldstone, Pinstripe Post.
Thank you. Jeff, you and John obviously have a lot of experience, preparing for the draft, but with this condensed timeline, with the season restarting in December, how chaotic do you anticipate this week being with the draft, with free agency, and do you anticipate an active trade season, if you will, because of the NBA financial landscape and maybe a lack of money for a lot of teams to improve the roster, by any other means besides the draft and besides, through trades?
I'm sorry, Aaron, you kind of broke up for the first part of the question. Could you say that again? Apologize.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I just said, how unique has this been with the condensed timeline leading into December of draft, free agency, and do you anticipate a very chaotic week because of NBA's financial landscape and because a lack of ability of a lot of teams to add through free agency?
I can answer unequivocally that it's going to be a chaotic week. And the reason that I can is because it already is. It's crazy. I mean, like, we have, 3 months worth of work to do in 10 days. And that's where, getting back to the earlier question about the preparation, this is where the planning comes in. And you can never plan for the amount of variables that are factored in, but you can do your best. So preparing your list, your if this, then that kind of scenarios is tremendously important. And that's what we've been spending the last few months on. Because yes, it is crazy. It's already crazy. And the fact that we're going from the draft right into free agency, right into training camp, right into the season, within a very short time is unlike anything that any of us have ever been through. I mean, this is obviously unprecedented. That being said, to the second part of your question, I do think there'll be a lot of deal making. I think that no one's really sure how cap space and cap flexibility is going to be regarded coming into this new landscape now, and we're kind of getting a more compressed cap picture. There are a lot of unknowns that we'll have to just see as we come through, and it'll be a team by team decision, but I do anticipate a lot of activity, yes.
Okay, go back to Mike Bianchi, Orlando Sentinel.
Yeah, Jeff, besides JI, do you expect everybody back and healthy when training camp starts? And a second question, you always hear fans and even us media guys say the Magic need to make a trade, be splashy. How hard is it to resist the urge to do something like that as a GM and personnel evaluator?
Yeah. So the first part of the question, I don't want to lay out timetables, but Chief Farouk has worked really hard this summer. While we were in the bubble, he was working really hard, and his knee's feeling good. He's in a good place. I don't want to lay out timetables about camp and this and that, because anytime a player has that long of a layoff, we don't want to put too hard and fast a timeline to it. But I think he's in a good place. He's feeling good. I think he's really excited about showing our fans, the type of player that he is, because I think that was kind of taken from him a little bit last year. And obviously, Mo is still kind of dealing with the back end of some of his COVID-related issues, and we're still working through some of that. But again, Mo's been working his tail off, and I think he's in a good place. I won't put timelines on those guys, but we expect them to be fully recovered. And I don't want to say if or when. And then Chuma, has just been a robot. He's been a machine, and he's working his tail off as well. And we're at the point now where we're hopeful that we can execute a contract for him in the upcoming. I don't want to put a window on it, but shortly. And once that happens, then he'll be able to fully participate in all the activities. And he needs that. It's been a long, long time since he's played, and we need to integrate him into more live activities. So I'm sorry, Mike. So the second part of your question, it's not tempting to make a trade. It's hard to make a trade, and especially if you like your team. And I really feel, we've talked about this before, but look, we were playing really well. Like, we were a team that I think guys didn't want to play against, in the first part of the bubble before we, went through that rash of injuries. And so, we like our group, but obviously it's our job to make our team better. And so we always have to engage and understand the value of our players, and understand where we think we can get better, and work that into the context of the draft and our cap situation and all that. But it's not tempting to make a trade just for trade's sake, if that's kind of what you're asking. I think that the great mover of teams in this league that's often not regarded is continuity, and so we value that. I'd rather not make a trade, but obviously we need to get better, so we pursue trades and we see what's available, but we won't kind of I know one GM who's fond of the expression, just shuffle the chairs at the end of the deck, and we don't do stuff like that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, go back to Josh Robbins.
Jeff, a two-part question. First question is, what are your general expectations for how active the Magic will be in free agency?
I'm going to give you a two-part answer, and we have some player options that are going to be very significant in what our cap situation looks like, et cetera. So, again, it gets back to the if then. I can tell you that we will be very active, but I don't know, what that means. We've been very active in discussions leading up to the draft. And as I always say, we'll probably just pick where we are and call it a day. That's the way the league works more often than not. But, we of course will be very active, and we're doing a lot of due diligence.
With regard to that if-then statement, let's assume for a second that Evan picks up his player option. Given that would bring the team closer to the tax line, if he does pick up that option, would the team be less likely to use all of its non-taxpayer mid-level exception?
Yeah, I mean, you have to just do the math and look at the amount of room we would have left and the amount of roster spots we would need. So we would be, tight, and we'd have to, work within the restrictions, that are in front of us at that point. So, I would say that would be a safe bet.
Paul Casanova.
But I got a question. Why is Robbins the only guy who I'm seeing on the screen?
That's, well, I'm not even gonna joke about that.
There you go.
All right, there we go. I'm not calling anybody out. It was just a curious question. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I digress.
Paul Casanova.
Yeah. Hi. The last time we talked, I asked you if you could give us your top priority for the off season, and you kind of told me no, you couldn't. Can you now tell us what your top priority is for the off season? Is it free agency? I know the draft is 2 days away, but what do you feel is your biggest priority?
I mean, we got to get better. That's our priority is always to get better, and we just have to be barking up every tree, turning over every stone, and finding out what opportunities there are to get better. And I can't predict if those opportunities come through free agency, whether they come through the draft. Obviously, whatever we talk about, it takes a partner, whether it's a player in free agency or whether it's a team in a deal. The only control that you really have is who you want to pick if you pick, when your number is called in the draft. So aside from that, everything is dependent upon others. I don't know how else to answer that, but to say that, we recognize that there are ways that we need to get better. And listen, part of that too, there are ways that we need to also be thinking, forward and getting, our financial situation in a place that we're able to be aggressive when we want to be. And all of that stuff is baked in, and very seldom is it your own decision to make.
All right, go back to Philip.
Hey, Jeff. As with the compressed timeline between now and the beginning of the regular season, especially when it comes to guys like Chuma and the draft pick, does that compressed timeline affect how you use this pick specifically? Does it you want to have a player that can kind of come in, hit the ground running, or do you still kind of view the draft the same way you always would? And kind of a second part to that question, does being in the playoffs consecutive years, now being, somewhat of an established playoff team or a playoff caliber team, does that change what you value or what you're looking for from the draft?
Well, the first part of your question, it is something that we discussed, obviously, that we always discuss, like how ready are guys to play and what is their timeline. I think that, we've demonstrated that we're willing to wait if we believe in the player and who he's going to become. So we've kind of drafted guys that have a more extended timeline. Chuma, I think, would have been more of a as the scouts say, a plug and play type player. But obviously, he was dealing with an injury, which we knew of. So so it factors in, but it's not the ultimate, decision maker. And then I'm sorry. So Philip, the last part of your question.
Yeah, does being a team now that's kind of established itself as a playoff team, playoff capable team, does that affect what you value or what you're looking for from a draft pick?
No. But I can tell you this. That I think that over the last couple of years, our organization is viewed in a good light, and I can say that we're having even albeit even some lower priced free agents, we're getting the idea that we think we'll be able to, because of the buzz around agents wanting us to draft their players and et cetera, that we feel that, that our coaches are guys that they want to play for, that our organization is a place where they want to be. And so I would say that we're hopefully, and I say this, that we've got to keep working and getting better every day, becoming a place where players want to be. But it will not affect the way that we look at the draft. The way that we look at the draft is, we need to get talented guys with skill and toughness and IQ who will help us get better. And if we have to wait on that, so be it. That's the draft. As I always say, the draft kind of like tells you, you have to listen to what the draft is giving you a little bit.
Thank you.
Go back to Adam Shadoff, Fox 35.
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm going to start the video here so you can see me for this one.
Thanks, Adam.
If you, if you read all the free agent and the trade rumors, Aaron Gordon is the one name that gets by far the most buzz for the Magic. Do you anticipate that he would be the player that you would receive the most trade interest for?
We get a lot of calls on all of our guys. I think that, there's a lot, there's a lot of buzz on AG because he's a really talented player, I think it's as simple as that. And it's just amazing how, information kind of, I would say unfounded information, as it gains steam, kind of like becomes assumed to be true. And we get calls on all of our guys. We have a pretty deep roster, and I can tell you that there literally has not been a guy that we haven't had a conversation about, like teams like our roster. And Aaron gets a lot of calls because he's a talented young player, and he's a high character person, and he's a hard to find guy in this NBA where he can guard perimeter and interior guys. So it's no surprise there have been a lot of calls on him, but we, as I always say, there's just an amazing amount of misinformation that circulates and is unfounded, and that's something that kind of comes with this time of the year. So yes, we always anticipate getting a lot of calls on AG. Yes, we have gotten a lot of calls on AG, and I would say that means he's a good player.
Okay, we have time for a couple more. We'll go back to Mike Bianchi.
I was trying to start the video, but I can't figure out how to do that. Sorry about that. Plus, I'm in my underwear anyway, so you don't want to see it. Yeah, back to my original question about, the unpredictability and maybe the guessing game of this draft. Because of that, could there be more of a chance for somebody you really like to fall to 15?
I guess so. I mean, all we can do is kind of, scenario plan. And I can tell you that I don't know how many mathematical combinations there are between, 1 and 15, but we've looked at all of them. And it's a great question. I will say this. There seems to be a bigger variability than in a typical season. I think by and large, it's getting close to impossible to dope out the draft. In the old days, you can go to bed the night before and really have it almost scripted out. And those days are long gone. Everybody's keeping secrets, and there's a lot of late movement. There's a lot of, misinformation being planted by teams and agents. But it does seem that this year there's like an extra layer because some of your information streams are being eliminated this year. So for example, when the kids go do workouts and the players are traveling in 3-on-3 packs and they're going, you kind of pick their brains. Hey, who looked good here? How'd you do there? And, you can kind of start to, maybe piece together a little bit of information for whatever it's worth. You never take it to the bank, but a lot of that stuff is just not available this season. So yeah, like all the teams are much more detached. There aren't pro days where we're all kind of in the same gym for 2 or 3 days together. you know, it's all kind of like phone work and it's behind the scenes and there are no visits. So there does seem to be a little more variability. But at the end of the day, it's guesswork is guesswork. You know, at the end of the day, you kind of like have to scenario plan for every possibility because even in a good year, you really don't. The draft unfolds. That's the cool thing about the draft. The draft unfolds for us in real time as it does for the fans.
Okay, a couple more here. We'll go back to Dan Savage, OrlandoMagic.com.
Jeff, as you mentioned, one of the key opt-in, opt-out guys is Evan Fournier. You know, I won't ask you to comment on that specific status, but, you know, just what has he meant to this franchise over the course of his time here and your time with him?
Well, I mean, the first thing is Evan is just a great guy. He's a great guy. It's you know, you just look forward to seeing him every day. You know, he's a really interesting person, and he's fun to be around, and he's a real competitor. You know, he's a team guy, and so you know, he means a lot. He means a lot, and I obviously haven't talked about the fact that you know, he's a good player. He's a shot creator, and you know, he plays with a toughness. So. You know, he's meant a lot to us, and obviously, you know, we'll wait and see kind of how that, you know, looks at the end of the day, and kind of you know, progress through there. That's what we do.
Okay, and final question goes to Josh Robbins.
It doesn't seem like the trend toward the importance of outside shooting is diminishing in the league. Has your team's value and emphasis on bringing in shooting increased this year as compared to last year's draft or the draft before that?
I think there's always a premium on shooting, you know, but there's also a premium on competitiveness and toughness and IQ. And, you know, this league is becoming about, you know, being able to guard out on 5 outs. It's about skill. It's about toughness. You know, there are a lot, I can kind of like go through a lot of layers and say, you know, tell me how many, you know, low IQ or lack of toughness guys played deep into the playoffs. You know, look at those rosters, look at the guys that were on the court. So yeah, shooting matters a lot, and a lot of other things matter a lot too. But obviously, you know, the way the game is flowing these days, you know, I don't think shooting has ever been at a higher premium. That's for sure.
Okay, Jeff, thank you for your time. For everyone, we will send out the recording as soon as possible. We will also post it on OrlandoMagic.com and our PR Twitter feed. And again, on draft night, we will be sending you a link where you can do interviews. But obviously that night we ask for patience. And once Jeff can get away from the draft room, we'll get with you. All right. Thank you for everyone's time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.